there's one fundamental point of how multiple programmers can work together using LabVIEW. There are the following rules. You should talk, you should communicate, you should converse. I think you get the point, right? That the only way this can succeed with multiple programmers working together is that you talk a lot. Because what's going to happen if you're not careful, and I can speak from experience from earlier this week, in fact maybe a little bit earlier this morning, 3 programmers each working on different parts of things, putting it all together, ending with a project that was completely non-functional. We've seen how typedefs and SubVIs have the great benefit of propagating all over the place. So what happens when person A changes a typedef to add a new function that they just decided they need? Meanwhile, person B on their laptop changes the typedef to add the new function that they just decided they need. How do you bring those two things back together? Well, the short answer is very carefully. But I'm going to give you some hints to kind of point out some thoughts as to how you can avoid the problem in the first place. And the problem is multiple people changing the same file. So the short answer is break it into separate files so that each person has their own which they can modify. Okay, so we'll get to that. Number one, though, is splitting the tasks. If you have a robot and you want to actuate the functional mechanism to raise a motor when you push this button on the joystick, then it doesn't make sense to have 3 guys working on that same PI on three different computers, right? It's just never going to work out. So what you want is one individual working on the drive, another individual working on the functional mechanism, a third individual working on the autonomous, maybe also vision. So split the tasks up. And that will allow you to make sure that people can make changes to things without colliding. I've said this before, but I like to say it over and over and over again. And part of the problem that our team faced earlier this week was a result of an inadvertent change to the non-team code. When I say non-team code, I'm referring to anything sitting in C, program files, national instruments, LabVIEW. And so on and so forth. Don't change anything in there. The only stuff you should be changing is in your project directory. Because if you do change it, what happens is everything will seem perfectly fine and dandy on one computer, and then when the project gets exported and used for person B's computer, it just doesn't work at all. In fact, you might not even be able to open and debug it because so many VIs might be missing. So that's the number one, that's the golden rule. Second part of that, always save SubVIs you're creating, typedefs to the right place. There's a hint. There's a way you can check whether everything's in the right place, and I'll show you that now. So if I go to the Project Explorer, I take a look at this project. We see a list of all of our VIs, what we're calling, what we're using. There's our team code, there's our typedefs. Does this mean that all of these files are on the same directory on the hard drive? No question. No, I heard someone say that emphatically. You can learn the hard way that it doesn't mean that at all. These are aliases, these are references to these files that are part of this project. There's a second tab here called Files. And that shows you where everything is actually located. So that example I just gave, you see there's a whole bunch of stuff here in C program files, National Instruments Lab, VI Library, Robotics Library, blah, 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 blah. These are all the things that are being used as part of this project that are the non-team code, right? That's all the library stuff you should never change. If I minimize that, we see I also have a second set of files. This is exactly where they're located on the hard drive. See my documents, LabVIEW data, the project that I just created, and then you see where everything is located. Remember that SubVI I created a moment ago? It shows me where in the hard drive that is actually located. So if I go and I edit and make these kind of changes that I demonstrated a moment ago, let's open the wrong thing. If I open the robot main and do this trick that I did before with my dashboard, I'm going to just create another SubVI. So I'll just create a new VI. I don't know what it's going to do yet, but I'm going to go ahead and save it. Maybe I'll save it right to C. So I'll call it C new vi.vi. Okay? And I can even put that in here. Still doesn't do anything yet. I'll edit the icon so we can remember what it looks like. It's in my robot main, which means it's automatically been added to my project. We see it there, right? Listed new vi.vi. So it looks like everything is happy and laughing and hunky-dory. I've got my stuff, it's sitting in the right place, it's in my project, I can use it, I can edit it. So when I go to make a backup of this code, or I go to archive it so that I can give it to my programming partner who's going to take it over to the next thing, what I'm likely to do is go to the directory where it's sitting, take this whole directory, maybe I'll open it up, and the way I like to archive code to hand it off to someone or to back it up is to select everything and use WinZip or quick rar or something like that to add it to an archive directory. So I like to back this up by selecting all the files, giving it an appropriate name, so 24 Jan 09, 4:20 p.m.zip. So great, there's my zip. Everything's contained in it. I've got all my important stuff from the project. And I can give this off to Bob or Linda or whoever's going to take it over. But what happened? What's missing? What's going to be missing from that? New VI. Why? Because even though I look at my project, I see, oh, new VI is there, but that's not where I saved it. I saved it right in the root of C. And one way to double check that is to go to the Files tab and make sure you should have just 2 locations of stuff. It should be that long program files, national instruments, lab, blah, 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 blah. And it should be wherever your whole archive of files are. But I see something else sitting in C, which is that. Okay. So you've got to be very careful, but here's a nice way to double check. I stand up here and I say I've been doing this for a long time, but it happens. You have to be very careful. Otherwise, you're going to hand something off to someone, or you're going to come somewhere to do a demo, or you're going to, at worst, go to competition and try and make changes to your code and realize a whole bunch of your sub-VIs are missing and they're back somewhere else. And the only thing, I can see some people in the audience pointing at some of their fellow team members, and the only thing you can do to get going again is to rewrite the missing VIs. Again, be very careful where you save them. The same is true for typedefs. If you save a typedef, you can just as easily throw it in the wrong place and miss backing it up. So the solution is to check the files tab, to check the file locations. Okay. Ownership of typedefs. And this harkens back to the very first point, which was actually chat, communicate, talk. You get the idea, right? You have to make it very clear who's doing what and who's editing what. Because if 2 people change a typedef or 2 people change a sub-VI, one of them is going to lose out. And probably what's going to happen is you're not going to notice when you put the files together, and one is just going to be gone. And you may not even notice until you try and do a certain function that you realize that function isn't there. So that's true for typedefs and it's true for sub-VIs. So here's an idea, here's an approach that I think is really important. Sub-VIs are easy, right? If you have a vision sub-VI and Bob is doing the vision, Bob is the only person who can change the vision sub-VI. And if Bob is the only one who can change the vision sub-VI, Bob is the only one who can change the vision typedef. And if Mary is doing the drive, then Mary is the only person who can change the drive sub-VIs. But it gets a little bit more complicated with typedefs in the main robot data typedef, right? Because it's just one typedef. So you've got 2 choices. You only edit typedefs by committee, which I think is actually probably the best choice, but unfortunately it's not completely practical because sometimes you have to be in different places at different times working on the same typedef. So here's an approach I like. If I wanted to add things for Bob to do and things for Mary to do within the main typedef, here's what I would do. I'm going to edit the robot typedef. So